Everyone, welcome again to Mike's SPSS tutorials. Today I am going to continue where I left off last time in showing you a little bit about the variable properties. I neglected to mention something that I wanted to bring in just to show you guys about how to label values within a variable, and then I'm going to continue on to show you how you can import data from previously created data into SPSS. So here's the SPSS window as you saw it last time, with the data we had from before and with the variables we had from before. The thing I want to call your attention to this time around is this column right here called values. Now, I didn't mention it in the last video, and I really should have, but this values column is very important when you're dealing with categorical variables that are coded. So let's say, for example, we had a variable called gender that represents the gender of a newborn baby, let's say. Now, it's going to be a type numeric, and even though you don't immediately think of gender as being numeric, I'll explain why. Let's say we have it coded so that a 1 represents females and a 2 represents males. Well, if we were to look at the data, we could have, let's say, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. So we have a female, a male, a female, and 2 males. Now, if we look at that, we don't immediately see that. And the reason is that it's coded. So what we want to do is use this values column to show what those coded values mean. So you'll see here it says value labels, and it has the value and the label. So for the value of 1, we know that that is a female baby. And a value of 2, we know that is a male baby. If we add these now, that's it, that's the whole process, it's very simple. If we add it in, that's the label for those values, and we hit OK, now it is automatically done. However, if I go into this data view and I try to see it, nothing's changed. And it seems kind of strange because, you know, we added these labels, why isn't it labeling it? Well, the thing is, it's not going to label it here in your data view, and the reason is the data view tries to basically minimize the amount of space your database is taking up. So if we go into now a descriptive statistics and get the frequencies for gender, what we're going to see now is our labels come up, and here you're going to see valid females, there's 2, males, there's 3, and that's exactly what we wanted to see. If we originally had this show up as valid 1 has a frequency of 2 and 2 has a frequency of 3, we wouldn't really know immediately what does a 1 represent, what does a 2 represent. And different, you know, organizations or researchers or entities will use different coding systems, and that's why it's important to have these value labels. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that to you guys. It's very important. You'll see it a lot in SPSS datasets, and it's really important to use when you're dealing with your own SPSS datasets because it makes it a lot easier in coding and in the output so that you can see it very easily. Now, I'm going to switch topics, and I'm going to jump into how to import data from previously created sources. So if I go to File, New Data, and close my previous data and previous output window, I now am fresh at the very beginning of using SPSS. Now what I want to do here is not start coding the variables because we're not going to be making new data, but rather import previously created data. Now I've created a data set here called Excel data, and it has 3 variables, x, y, and z, with 2 observations, 1, 2, 3, and 7, 8, 9. And this is the previously created data. In fact, let me make this a little bit bigger in case you can't see it. X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Very simple. You can make this yourself, and if you want, just make sure to File, Save As, well, let's say Save, and you want to save it as an Excel 97 to 2003 workbook. I'm not sure if SPSS saves or can read regular 2007 and onwards Excel data, which is this Excel workbook type, the .xlsx file format. So I'm just saving it as a .xls, and I'm going to show you how to import that. So if we go up here to File, you'll see that there's this new open database, and read text data. These three menu options right here, the open database, and read text data, are the one to want to use when importing previously created data. If you use the open data method, you can see that it's going to automatically want to import file of type .sav, the SPSS statistics data format. Well, we're dealing with an Excel type, so we go down, we click on this options, an Excel file .xls. Oh, it can also do X. So XLS and XLSX will both work. And it's going to have here this Excel data .xls on my desktop, which is the data I created, and I'm going to hit open. Now when it opens up, it's going to have this opening Excel data source window, and it's going to ask here if you want to read the variable names from the first row of data. Well, since I have the first row of data including the variable names, I'm going to make sure that this is checked. And then I'm going to also make sure that it's using the correct worksheet. If your data is stored on a different worksheet within the Excel file, the Excel workbook, then you want to make sure that you're using the correct one. So this one is going to be on sheet 1. And I'm going to hit OK. And right away it does all of the work for me. And you can see here I have the X, Y, and Z variables with the 2 observations, with 1, 2, 3 on the first and 7, 8, 9 on the second. So it's very nice and simple for you. And you can see also it does the variable coding for you with the types numeric. Now if you had some character variables in there, some string variables, you could of course change them, and I think SPSS should automatically detect that, but in case it doesn't, you can just go here into the variable view and do it yourself. There's one other method I want to show, and I'm going to go to new data, and I'm going to show you how to import a file format type .csv, a comma separated values data file. And it's very simple. It works the same way. So you go to open data, and it's going to be on the desktop, and I'm going to scroll down here to make sure that I see all file types, and I have this csv data.csv, and I hit open. Now it's going to use what it calls the text import wizard. Now this is the same menu system you would get if you went to file, read in text data, and it's going to ask you some simple questions to help you see what the data will turn out like. So here the first question is, does your text file match a predefined format? I would always say no. Go to the next menu, and it says here, how are your variables arranged? Are they delimited, or is there a fixed width? Well, I know it's a CSV file, so it has commas to delimit the data, and so I'm going to make sure it says delimited. And it says, are the variable names included excuse me, are the variable names included at the top of your file? Yes. I hit next. Ignore this first option because that happens automatically from the previous menu with the variable names on top. But then it's going to ask, how are your cases represented? Each line represents a case. Yes. How many cases do you want to import? All of the cases. And it says which delimiters appear between the variables. Here it's automatically figuring out that it's a comma because it's a CSV type. If you had used a space delimited file or a semicolon delimited or some other delimited type, you could check this other option, uncheck the comma, and specify what the delimiter is. But since we're using a comma delimiter, we're going to make sure that comma is checked and nothing else is, and you can see what the data would look like. And then I hit next, and before it goes into just throwing everything into SPSS, it's going to allow you to rename the variables as you'd want them. So the original name was X. I can change this. Let's say I changed it to ID, and I know it's a data format of numeric. For Y, I can change it to, I don't know, let's say treatment. And for Z, mind you that every time I'm switching the variables here, I'm clicking on the column. And for Z, I can change it to something else, like let's say site, for some study site. And you can see now that the variable names have been renamed and the values are all there, and I can hit next. and hit finish, and it should automatically show you it as it would. So here in our variable view, we can see the ID, treatment, and site showed up. In the data view, our two observations are there, and then we can run our statistics on it. Very nice, very simple, very easy. And I'm just going to close this and close this and show you the very last method, which is a little bit more complicated, but depending on your needs may be needed. So let's go to File, Open Database, New Query. Now mind you that there's New Query, Edit Query, and Run Query. The Edit Query and Run Query are a little bit more complicated. I'm not going to cover them. I'm just going to show you how to use a new query, and I'm going to show you it on an Excel file type. You can see here though that they allow you to use DBase files like database files, FoxPro, Microsoft Access, Prism, or text files. In this case, I'm going to do it in an Excel file, and I'm going to browse for the location, which is on my desktop, exceldata.xls, and hit OK. And as before, where it wants you to specify the sheet that the data is on, you can see that it's sheet 1 that has some variable information, whereas sheet 2 and sheet 3 only have this kind of like default format. And so I'm going to say sheet 1, I'm going to hit this little arrow where it will retrieve fields in this order, X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to hit next. I'm going to skip this menu. It's overtly complicated. It's a little method of limiting which cases you retrieve using some expressions. I'm going to skip it and I'm going to hit next. And then defining the variables. Here I can edit the names like I did before. I can change X to be called Y to be called treatment, and Z to be called site. And then you could see it allows you to specify the type and do this recode to numeric, which I won't really talk about. Hit next, finish, and voila, the data has been brought in, it's been renamed, and it's ready for analysis. So that's 3 different ways: the open data, open database, and the read text data. Read text data, remember, is the same as using open data when you're dealing with text files, and it brings up this, just to show you real quick actually, it brings up this text import wizard that we saw exactly as before. So it's very simple. And so those are 3 methods of importing data from previously created sources into SPSS for your analysis. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Look forward to the next video. It should be soon. And take it easy.